Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Awakening Greatness. And if you've been with us every week, we've been going live talking about the nine principles in my new book, The Art of Bouncing Back. I'm so excited because we are on principle 8. And you know what that means? We only have one more principle to go, which means we are at book launch week next week, February 28th. My book, The Art of Bouncing Back, right here, will be in bookstores all over. You can get it both Audible, you can purchase it. And if you go now, before February 28th, to coachstar.com, you can get some pre release bonuses where I have master classes that you could go on and listen to and get that normally are hundreds of dollars that people purchase, but you're going to get them with book orders. So go ahead and take a look at that. You could also get it on Amazon. But today specifically, I was going to have a special guest with me, but he couldn't make it. So we are still pressing forward because you know what? That's the art of bouncing back. I have actually on my desk here, this whole thing came from bouncy balls. Since I've been a kid, I love bouncy balls. And then the metaphor came when I was helping athletes and artists bounce back. And I would throw the bouncy ball when it would get too serious. And I'd say, you've got to change your state. Life is going to bounce. It's going to hit. And you're not going to know which direction it's going. But the one who stays agile and the one that learns how to bounce with the ball and get back up is the one who succeeds. And when you bounce a bouncy ball, when you throw it, the harder you throw it, the higher it goes. That's what happens to us. And that's why I wrote this book. I wanted people to have the tools to know how to bounce back. So, principle 8 is all about cultivating grit. I put this in part of the process because we need to be able to develop this resiliency and this grit muscle. And you don't develop resiliency and grit by everything going easy, by it just you coasting. You develop the grit through the hard times. You develop the grit by also putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. So I talk about how I go in the cold plunge. I just did this weekend, and it was funny, because I train in really cold temperatures for me, which was like 37, there was a cold plunge and it was, I think, 45 degrees. So the people that were going in, they're like, this is the coldest cold plunge I've ever been in. So mentally I was like, oh, damn, this is going to be cold. And I never just want to get in the cold plunge. But what am I doing? I'm training this, one, for my body. I know what it does, but I'm cultivating my grit. I'm cultivating my resiliency. I'm putting myself in situations that are uncomfortable. So it's interesting now when I go to the hockey games with some of my players to watch them, or I'm in cold environments. It's cold, but it doesn't alarm me as much. That's what cultivating grit does. And by the way, when I went to go get in the cold plunge this weekend, when I got in, I'm thinking, oh, it's going to be really cold because I could see everyone's face and they're like, wow, this is the coldest. When I got in, it was not that, it was cold, but it was definitely not the coldest. I've been in cold situations where the temperature was 35 degrees. And I'm like, wow, this is freezing. But my point is that training that I did in the cold, really cold, prepared me, obviously, for these other cold plunges. But that's the metaphor for life. When we put ourselves in challenging situations for good, and it means it's going to help us, we push ourselves out of our comfort zone, we have that difficult conversation, we get a little gritty when it's adversity's hitting us, we say, okay, hold up, rather than me losing it mentally, what is this teaching me? When you start reframing, which is one of the principles, and you start getting into it and you start cultivating this grit, you really do bounce back better. There is a quote I put in here. It says, at various points in big ways and small, we get knocked down. If we stay down, grit loses. If we get up, grit prevails. That's Angela Duckworth. She wrote the book Grit. And I said in here, human beings are immeasurably strong. We're only as weak as our mental fortitude permits us to be. We don't push ourselves that extra hour, the extra mile, or have difficult conversations because it's easier to hide in our comfort zones. Often we stop short of overcoming challenges and reaching our greatness because we give up too soon. Having mental and emotional grit to adapt to any situation will build an unbeatable resiliency that helps you bounce back. That's the first part of the grit chapter. It really is true. When you put yourself in these situations, it helps you. And in the book, I've put together this formula, which is the 9 principles, and they go in like a circle because life is never linear. But I really was passionate about this grit chapter, and it's honestly one that I feel like I could have written a whole book on it. But in it, I also talk about grit has nothing to do with luck. Grit has nothing to do with intelligence. Grit has nothing to do with talent. Grit has nothing to do with what we want or hope for. Instead, grit is one's ability to tolerate hardships and keep a goal-focused mindset in order to reach the other side. So whatever it is that you've been going through, I really want you to focus on the vision, why you're in it. Because when you're in it, in order to stay gritty, in order to keep going, you have to be connected to your why, which is why all these principles start leaning on top of each other. They start layering like a cake. And you can't hope for grit. You can't wish for grit. You just have to be in it and learn what you need to learn and you learn grittiness. You build grittiness by being in it. So think about where in your life you've had situations where you probably let your emotions take you a little bit and you didn't stay in it and you didn't work through it. So therefore you didn't build your grit muscle. Really think about it. And when you think about it, write it down. Write down what you did. And then go ahead and write down where's a situation now that maybe you need to lean into that will start to build grit. What is it? And then go do it. Take action. The only way we're going to build the muscle is by doing it. I think about, I get gritty even in my health and my workouts. Lately, I haven't had a chance to do what I need to as much in the morning. So I've already been thinking about, okay, how do I shift this? What am I going to do at night? Which I'll be a little tired, but I've got to stay gritty in it if I want to keep my health at optimal levels to keep going. So it's not, sometimes you don't want to do it. You'd rather take the comfort zone, sit on the couch, watch a show. I can't. I need to make sure I take care of my health in the middle of this book launch. So I'm going to have to make time to work out. But that's developing a grit mindset, a resilient mindset. Like, I need to stay agile. I need to adjust. And when you do this, you really start to see people that when adversity hits them, it's not that they don't feel it. It's just that they just are more grittier, so they handle it better. So think about grit as something that strengthens you, something that helps you, and adversity will advance you if you allow it. And there's one example that I wanted to talk about, which is I wrote here that part of grit is practice. I said, much like other disciplines we've studied, grit is the art to be practiced. You might try and fail before you find success. In 2002, entrepreneur Elon Musk formed Space Exploration Technologies, or SpaceX, in hopes of revolutionizing the aerospace industry. Musk knew the key to running a fiscally successful space shuttle program of his own would be creating a reusable rocket. Musk and his team worked tirelessly to construct a rocket that would theoretically launch, land vertically, and then be relaunched repeatedly. The first attempt failed. The second attempt failed. The third attempt failed. The fourth attempt failed. But finally, on April 8th, 2016, SpaceX launched and safely landed its first rocket. If you don't have grit and you don't have mental fortitude, after first couple failures, you may think, I'm supposed to give up, but it was just you giving up. Not that the exercise, not that the vision, not that the product, not that your business was supposed to be given up on. It was just you giving up in that moment. So just make sure that you're clear on the purpose and the vision, but also that make sure it's not you lacking grit and the fortitude to see something through that really is needed for this world. Because when you show up and you have grit to it and you see it through, after a few attempts, you finally get to success. If you're willing to learn from it, if you're willing to move through this, if you're willing to get gritty, you'll learn the lesson from it. So that's what I wanted to share on how to get gritty, the principle about it, a little teaser of it. And I hope that you take all of these and you apply them, because knowledge is great, but knowledge applied is wisdom. We don't get better by just listening. We get better by listening and then applying. So go ahead, go get your copy of The Art of Bouncing Back on Amazon or CoachStar.com. Pre-release bonuses are there until February 28th. And then come February 28th, you can get this at bookstores across the nation, and it ships globally as well. So it's an honor. This has been a passion of mine to get these out there, and a passion and an honor to be able to do these shows weekly with you all. And we'll keep going. Next week is the last principle, turning the page. You won't want to miss it. I'll see you then.